Dinar Daily viewers. Welcome back to our channel, where we bring you the most critical updates impacting the Iraqi dinar. Today, we have a major development to discuss, one that's being called a truly historic event on the floor of the United States House of Representatives. This is not just a passing headline. It's a profound statement that could redefine Iraq's economic trajectory for years to come. For a long time, the world of the Iraqi dinar has been clouded by speculation, unverified rumors, and conjecture. Investors have had to navigate a landscape filled with half-truths and claims from self-proclaimed insiders. But what has just entered the congressional record is a game-changer. It's a clear, authoritative declaration from American lawmakers themselves, and its directness leaves no room for ambiguity. This isn't just sideline chatter, it's a formal statement of policy and intent from the highest levels of the U.S. government. The significance of this moment cannot be overstated. We haven't seen a statement this consequential regarding Iraq's monetary future in over a decade. It's a watershed moment for everyone with a stake in the Iraqi dinar, as fundamental questions about the currency's long-term direction are finally being addressed with candor and precision. This development goes far beyond a simple diplomatic message or a symbolic political gesture. It marks a seismic shift in policy with enormous implications for Iraq, its government, its banking system, and every person or institution connected to the dinar. The core message from Washington is blunt and unmistakable. Iraq's financial reliance on the American system is no longer sustainable. For many years, the U.S. dollar has served as a critical crutch, offering stability, credibility, and global acceptance while Iraq focused on rebuilding its economy from the aftermath of conflict and instability. However, U.S. lawmakers are now making it clear that this era of dependency has reached its conclusion. The U.S. believes Iraq has matured to a point where this continued reliance has become a hindrance to its full economic potential. The analogy used by many lawmakers to describe this transition is that of training wheels on a bicycle. While the training wheels were useful and necessary during a period of recovery and learning, they ultimately restrict progress if they are not removed. The lawmakers argue that Iraq has now reached a point in its development where holding on to the U.S. dollar as a constant anchor stifles its sovereignty and prevents it from becoming a truly independent, globally integrated economy. The time has come, they assert, for Baghdad to take full responsibility for its own financial destiny. This profound statement carries significant weight not only for the Iraqi government but also for everyone holding the dinar. The long-standing question of whether Iraq could ever stand independently on the global financial stage, free from the shadow of U.S. oversight, has now been answered in the clearest possible terms. The answer from Washington is a resounding yes. Iraq must take that step, and it is expected to happen sooner rather than later. This is a direct challenge to the Iraqi government to demonstrate its capacity for self-governance in the financial sector. In practical terms, this new directive means that Iraq will need to manage its own currency with full sovereignty. It will be required to set its exchange rate through the policies of its own central bank and to build credibility for its financial system without the constant support of the U.S. dollar. This is an immense undertaking that demands careful fiscal management, strong governance, and a commitment to transparency in monetary policy. Above all, it requires the political courage to resist corruption and mismanagement that have often hindered Iraq's economic institutions in the past. Lawmakers were quick to add that this is not an act of pushing Iraq off a cliff. Instead, the United States is sending a strong signal that it has confidence in Iraq's readiness to take this monumental step. The U.S. believes that Iraq is prepared to stand on its own 2 feet, to claim its rightful place among the community of independent global economies, and to chart a financial future that truly reflects its immense potential as a resource-rich and strategically vital nation. This is a vote of confidence that comes with a clear expectation for action. For anyone paying close attention to this space, this development is a clear signpost that cannot be ignored or simply dismissed. The fact that U.S. lawmakers are publicly making such a definitive declaration suggests that extensive behind-the-scenes discussions and preparations have been underway for a considerable amount of time. Major financial systems do not shift course overnight. This announcement almost certainly reflects a broader framework that is already in motion between Baghdad and Washington, a planned transition that is now being brought into the light. The message to those holding the dinar is now unambiguous. The debate over whether Iraq will eventually achieve monetary sovereignty is effectively over. The only remaining questions are about the implementation of this transition. What strategy will Iraq employ to step away from its reliance on the US dollar? How will it manage the inherent risks of this change? And what will this mean for the global perception of its currency? In a sense, this historic declaration serves as both a warning and a unique opportunity. It is a warning that the era of dependency is ending, and an opportunity to align financial strategies with the future in which Iraq asserts a more autonomous role in global finance. This recent development represents nothing short of a dramatic departure from the financial framework that has defined Iraq's economy for the past 2 decades. Ever since US-led reconstruction efforts began in 2003, the Iraqi financial system has been deeply intertwined with the American dollar. The greenback became the standard not only for the country's crucial crude oil transactions, but also for most international trade and government budgeting. The dollar served as a stabilizing anchor for the Iraqi dinar, lending it credibility in the global market and reassuring trading partners wary of Iraq's economic volatility. This long-standing arrangement, while it successfully provided a sense of financial order during years of instability and conflict, also tightly linked Iraq's economic fate to the US government's policies and regulations. For almost 20 years, every major fiscal decision in Baghdad was made under the shadow of the fact that Iraq's currency could not move independently without the implicit approval and support of the United States. Now, however, that very framework is being intentionally and systematically dismantled. The most striking part of this is that the very nation that designed the system is now declaring it obsolete. That is precisely why this announcement is causing such a ripple effect throughout the global financial community. When the original architect of a system states that the structure must be torn down, it signals a fundamental and irreversible shift in policy that investors must take seriously. At the core of this congressional announcement is a clear rejection of Iraq's current official exchange rate of 1,310 dinars to $1. Lawmakers in Washington were remarkably blunt, stating that this specific rate cannot and will not serve as a viable foundation for Iraq's financial future. For many within Iraq, this rate has long been seen as a symbol of dependency, not independence. It has come to represent stagnation rather than growth, and weakness rather than strength. For policymakers and citizens, it was a constant reminder of an imposed framework, one that maintained short-term stability at the expense of long-term prosperity and national pride. The rejection of this rate is more than a technical monetary adjustment. It is a profound symbolic break with the past. By declaring that Iraq must move beyond this fixed peg, the United States is essentially telling Baghdad that the very tools it has relied on are now preventing its progress and maturity. The shift places unprecedented pressure on the Central Bank of Iraq and other financial institutions to develop policies that align with domestic priorities instead of being dictated by foreign benchmarks. It also serves as a clear wake-up call to global markets, which must now prepare for the uncertainty and potential opportunities that will arise from Iraq no longer being tethered to an externally dictated valuation. What makes this acknowledgement particularly significant is that it validates years of analysis and criticism from economists and observers who have long argued that the 1,310 dinar rate is artificial and unsustainable, completely detached from Iraq's true economic potential. This is a nation blessed with some of the largest proven oil reserves in the world. Its production capacity ranks it among the top global energy suppliers. Furthermore, Iraq is steadily rebuilding its economy after years of conflict, strengthening its infrastructure, and attracting increasing interest from foreign investors and trading partners. Yet despite all these advantages, its currency has languished under a valuation that suppresses growth and erodes public confidence. By openly challenging this reality, U.S. lawmakers are essentially echoing what many observers have argued for a long time. Iraq deserves a currency that genuinely reflects its immense wealth and potential strength. The rejection of the 1,310 rate is therefore more than symbolic. It is the first step in a broader effort to re-establish Iraq's place in the global financial order. The key takeaway is that U.S. officials believe reform cannot succeed on the shaky foundation of this current valuation. If Iraq attempts to move forward while clinging to this rate, the entire system risks a catastrophic collapse. That stark assessment carries real consequences, as a currency peg that is perceived as artificial or unsustainable can quickly erode public confidence, encourage capital flight, and leave banks exposed to severe mismatches between their foreign currency liabilities and local currency assets. This creates immense pressure on Iraq's central bank and its government to develop and implement a credible, technically sound exit strategy, not just a cosmetic tweak. The U.S. has effectively removed the financial safety net that for years provided implicit backup and international acceptance for Iraq's monetary arrangements. In practical terms, this means Baghdad can no longer rely on an external anchor to reassure its global counterparts. Instead, Iraqi leaders must demonstrate a domestic policy framework capable of sustaining a more flexible exchange regime, and they must show sound fiscal discipline to control budget deficits, a credible monetary strategy to manage inflation, and a robust plan for foreign reserve management are also now essential. The political leadership must confront the domestic consequences of any changes, as social programs, public salaries, and the banking system itself may feel immediate stress if these reforms are mishandled. By removing the cushion, Washington has increased the urgency and narrowed the margin for error. Iraq no longer has an easy escape route if it wishes to avoid a chaotic adjustment. It must act decisively and quickly to replace dependency with credible, independently managed institutions that can absorb shocks and foster long-term economic stability. This means one thing above all: comprehensive monetary reform. This is not simply a matter of public relations or a single announcement. It requires an integrated program of technical, institutional, and political measures. First among these is the long-anticipated deletion of zeros, also known as redenomination. This move is intended to simplify transactions, restore public confidence in cash holdings, and make price signals clearer for businesses and consumers. However, redenomination on its own is often viewed as a cosmetic change unless it is accompanied by deeper, more fundamental fixes to the financial system. Another crucial step is the introduction of stronger, better designed banknotes that are resistant to counterfeiting and inspire greater public trust. It also involves modernizing the country's payment and settlement infrastructure to ensure that reform doesn't disrupt daily commerce. Legal frameworks that support a truly independent central bank are also critical. Equally important is the move toward a realistic exchange rate, and, ultimately, a full revaluation of the Iraqi dinar so that its exchange rate policy aligns with the country's macroeconomic fundamentals rather than political convenience. This will involve strategically building up credible foreign exchange reserves, managing short-term liquidity to prevent sudden spikes in volatility, and establishing mechanisms, potentially including temporary capital controls or a phased liberalization, to prevent panic selling. Fiscal policy must also work in tandem with monetary reform. Transparent budgeting, a restructuring of oil revenue management, and measures to widen the tax base will be necessary to ensure price stability is not achieved at the cost of economic strangulation. And finally, to attract the foreign capital that a revalued dinar would enable and require, Iraq must make tangible progress on governance, anti-corruption, and legal certainty for investors. In summary, this comprehensive reform is a multidimensional program where careful sequencing, clear communication, and unwavering credibility will determine whether the country achieves a stable transition or faces severe macroeconomic upheaval. Think carefully about the magnitude of this moment. The very architects of Iraq's post-2003 financial system are now publicly declaring it obsolete. And declarations from architects of such systems matter immensely because they fundamentally change expectations among central bankers, foreign investors, commercial banks, and partner governments. The message from Washington is unmistakable. Iraq must graduate into full economic sovereignty. Make no mistake, this is not a polite suggestion. It is a directive with enormous implications for global finance, the energy sector, and the stability of the entire Middle East. For global markets, an independent Iraqi exchange rate policy will recalibrate risk across the board, from sovereign bonds to bank credit and oil revenue-linked instruments. For the energy sector, changes in currency policy can affect contract negotiations, export invoicing, and how oil revenues are settled with international partners. Regionally, a credible and well-managed transition could significantly strengthen Iraq's bargaining power and economic resilience. Conversely, a botched adjustment could amplify political instability, social unrest, and the external economic pressure. For ordinary Iraqis, the stakes are existential. Successful reform could restore dignity to the national currency and unlock investment that funds jobs and vital services. Failure could lead to crippling inflationary shocks, reduced purchasing power, and a breakdown of public trust. Because of these high stakes, the path forward must be navigated with technical expertise, political courage, and a public narrative that clearly explains both the short-term costs and the long-term gains. This is a turning point that will reverberate for years, not just a momentary policy pivot, but a potential redefinition of Iraq's economic sovereignty and its role in the global economy. For those with an interest in this space, this development represents the clearest external pressure we have ever seen in Iraq's financial history. The long-anticipated push from outside forces has finally arrived, and it comes directly from the highest levels of the U.S. government, signaling that the era of implicit tolerance for the 1,310 dinar peg is definitively over. Unlike the informal market chatter, the speculative online discussions, or the half-verified reports from various banking sources, this is a public and unambiguous directive from lawmakers whose decisions have a ripple effect across the global financial system. While it is impossible to guarantee a precise timeline for reform, the implications are immediate and far-reaching. Investors must recognize that this event is not just another headline. It permanently reshapes the landscape in which the Iraqi dinar operates. The statement represents a powerful alignment of geopolitical authority, financial oversight, and strategic messaging, a convergence that effectively removes previous uncertainties about whether Iraq's currency will remain artificially pegged or eventually be recalibrated. For those holding the dinar, this means the long-standing question of a potential revaluation has gained unprecedented legitimacy. The U.S. government, by signaling that Iraq cannot continue on its old path, has created an external forcing function that significantly increases the probability of concrete action from Baghdad, whether through central bank interventions, a redenomination, or a full currency revaluation. Understanding this, those with an interest in the dinar need to reassess not just the potential upside, but also the timing, the likely market reactions, and the policy implications that could affect liquidity, exchange rates, and market confidence. The days and weeks ahead will be absolutely critical for determining Iraq's trajectory, and for anyone watching this space, the window to interpret and respond to emerging developments is narrow. We will be closely monitoring for official statements from the Central Bank of Iraq, which will provide the first indication of how quickly monetary policy might adapt to this unprecedented external pressure. Emergency parliamentary sessions, legislative amendments, or government briefings could all signal the political will and readiness to implement comprehensive reform. Additionally, any announcements regarding timelines or the technical details of redenomination and steps toward exchange rate flexibility will be decisive for market participants. The global financial community is now watching Iraq's every move, from oil trading desks in New York and London to investment firms in Dubai and Singapore. This is because any significant shift in the dinar's status has the potential to influence energy markets, cross-border investment flows, and regional economic stability. Investors must remain vigilant. Even small signals, such as subtle comments from Iraqi finance officials or preliminary directives from the Prime Minister's office, can foreshadow major macroeconomic shifts. In today's interconnected markets where information travels at the speed of light, Timely and accurate intelligence is not just advantageous. It is essential for protecting assets, managing risk, and positioning strategically in anticipation of policy outcomes. This is why staying connected and informed is now more important than ever. Subscribing to reliable sources and activating notifications ensures that you receive updates the moment they are confirmed, rather than having to rely on incomplete or misleading reports. We will be analyzing every official statement, translating reports directly from Arabic media, and providing expert commentary to help you understand the full implications of each development in real time. The goal is to equip you with the knowledge needed to respond intelligently to these changes rather than reacting to rumors or speculation. Understanding the technical aspects of redenomination, the timing of a currency revaluation, and the broader political and economic context will be crucial in navigating this potentially transformative period ahead. Staying connected also allows people to identify emerging opportunities and to assess the broader impact of U.S. pressure on Iraq's monetary system, its oil-based revenue streams, and regional financial dynamics. In a situation where every announcement carries weight, staying informed is not just a convenience, it is a strategic necessity. Finally, we want to hear from you. Do you believe this is the final push Iraq needed to move decisively toward the revaluation of its currency? How do you expect Baghdad's leadership to respond to this unprecedented external pressure from Washington? Sharing your insights and engaging in this conversation is more than a discussion of financial theory. It is an opportunity to participate in a dialogue about one of the most consequential moments in modern economic history. Here at Dinar Daily, we are committed to empowering our audience with knowledge, analysis, and expert insight to navigate this unique and rapidly evolving environment. Remember, knowledge is power, and informed individuals are positioned to respond strategically as these events unfold. The next official update could redefine the financial landscape entirely, affecting not only Iraq's economy but also the global perception of its currency and its role in international markets. Staying vigilant, informed, and engaged is critical for anyone with an interest in Iraq's financial future and in understanding how these historic developments may unfold.